In a world of both heroes and villains, there are many iconic characters. But when it comes to true classic heroes, only one stands above the rest. The last son of Krypton, the Man of Steel, Superman. Salutations, my Phoenix film fanatics. I'm the Silver Screen Slasher, and welcome to Superman. This is basically going to be both retrospective and review of both of not just the Superman quadrilogy, but also of any films related to those. Joining me for this will be my good friend Cinemastein.
Hello, everybody, and yes, as Silver said, me and Silver will be taking pretty much a great look back at all the classics, Christopher Reeve Superman films, um, including, of course, two other ones that sort of involve that, but not, in like the world that Richard Donner, at least for his, take a Superman made, but anyway, kind of, not truly, I would say.
Tonight we're starting off with the original 1978 Superman the movie. This is by far one of the most memorable and most known comic book movies from the golden age of films of this era. And honestly, over 40 years later, this film still holds up.
Yep, just to give you an idea how, in fact, impressive and important, and in fact, even groundbreaking this film was, just remember this was still at a time, in fact, where comic book, either TV shows or even films were still at this very time. Because trust me, I know, but yeah, were very, very goofy and hard to take seriously. In fact, even at times were very low budgeted and not very well done and not very convincing. So what I'm trying to say is, Richard Donner really did something that no one else had did at the time. He really pushed the boundaries of the effects, the cinematography, the action, and just the story in general. Like, it really just improved. In fact,
Of
it was
course.
even considered to be one of the best comic book movies around that time. I guess you could say even this one that didn't come until later on, but yeah,
Of
it kind of
course.
remained as one of the best comic book movies alongside Tim Burton's Batman from 1989.
I know what you mean. I mean, hell, the tagline on the original poster was "You'll believe a man can fly," and that's exactly what Richard Donner was out to do. Now, before we start, one last thing I should note is there are two different versions of this movie that were released. There was the original theatrical version, which came out in 1978, and the expanded version, which came out in 2000. And for the sake of not confusing anyone, we're going to stick to the theatrical version of the movie just to make it a little bit easier. Sound fair?
Yep. Yep. And just to quickly let you know as well, that other version that Silver just mentioned, really, I believe it's called the TV cut because it's only shown on TV, I believe, at least so far. But there is a double feature, like Blu-ray that you can get, I believe, that includes that version if you want it. But the good news for me, I only saw really the clips of it on YouTube. At least that's how I came to discover it. Anyway, the one quick thing I also possibly want to mention for a side note, this film, for example, cost, I believe, a total of $50 million just to make. And anyway, it was a very expensive movie to make, and especially even some of the actors in this film were paid quite a, anyway, big price pretty much just to be in this. Oh, and just to give you an idea as well how popular and great this film was, even after it came out for 13 weeks, it stayed at number one at the box office, and also for quite a few years, or in fact, I believe, yeah, for quite some time anyway, it even stayed as one of Warner Brothers' greatest films of all time for quite some time. I'm not kidding.
Mm-hmm. So let's fly up, and away as we take a look at Superman the movie. Now, the film opens by showing us one of the origins of how Superman came to be from the pages of Action Comics. It's basically, a Superman.
Number one, to be exact.
Yeah, well, not exactly number one in a future comic, I believe. Anyway, the point being that it shows that even in the 1930s, is the city of Metropolis was not safe from the Great Depression. After that, after that little nonsensical bit, we have to look into space and falling into our opening credits, which on their own are just truly iconic and memorable.
Yep. And yes, just to let you guys know, of course, we don't really need to tell the origin. I mean, sorry, the story, the main part of this film, because I'm not kidding. It's really just pretty much straight comic book. So it's but I guess still the easy way to explain it though is it follows the great, of course, iconic story of course, one of pop culture's most iconic, in fact, probably one of their most famous superheroes of all time, of course, Superman. That of course the world kind gave birth to. And in fact, many people, of course, have even said that Superman is literally the the creation and the hero that pretty much gave birth to the idea of superhero comic books in general. But anyway, moving on to that,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we should now get on to the littler stuff of the film.
Mm-hmm.
First, I don't know. What do you think? So, should we now get on to the performances by the actors themselves?
Mm-hmm. And, and, I agree. In respective order, let's start with some of the actors from the prologue of the film. Starting, of course, with Superman's and, and, Kryptonian father, Jor-El, played by Marlon Brando. And honestly, he actually gives a pretty serious role.
Yeah, in fact, he, I even would dare say he's probably one of the best actors in probably, yeah, like, and especially unusual, and really does a great and convincing job of playing the role seriously, like the true professional he was at that time, and I would dare say still is to this day, even after his passing.
Mm-hmm.
But still, he really does give such a great performance. And what's even so great as well is that just like he's literally not in the movie for very long. He's literally in it just for the opening, and I believe even bits and pieces every now and then. But on that, he really does leave quite a hell of an impression. What do you think, Silver?
Yeah, I do agree with you on that. For only being in the movie, for only being appearing for about 10 minutes in a 2-hour, 10-minute movie, it's actually pretty impressive. If he leaves that much of an impact.
Yeah, because whenever films do this, sadly, when they we put a really great actor or even any actor in general that we possibly want to see more of in a film, and they're just like in it for maybe a few minutes. The directors always or at least most of the time, don't always sadly do at least a very good or even convincing job of making them, how should I say, stand out or in fact very impactful on the film. But that's what in a way is so impressive about this film, for example, is that one of the probably the beloved actors at that time leaves such an impact for such a small role in this film. That's what I love about it.
And think about it this way: this performance came out 6 years after the original Godfather movie, which honestly, it does show the range of performances that Marlon Brando could do at the time.
Yep, I guess now we should possibly, and I think it would make sense if we get to, of course, the son of Krypton himself, Superman, all played by good, probably the most famous actor to, but bring the Superman to life on the big screen, Christopher Reeve.
Hmm.
So, what do you have to say about this, Silver?
Well, to be honest, I was very, I was very impressed by this performance. And the late Christopher Reeve did a really great job of just bringing the iconic character of Superman to the big screen. And if it wasn't for his performance in both this and the three sequels that came after, we wouldn't be remembering in this film for such a it's iconic a character.
Yep. Speaking of, this was at a time as well where even Christopher Reeve himself was one of those actors, of course, who really desperately wanted to, be in films and everything. But of course, this was at a time where he was still just where he was still getting started. And a little, I guess, side note. Actually, had originally when he was about to audition for the role, a lot of actors, even other actors, said to him and at least gave their permission, at least to him, not to do the role at all because they think it wouldn't be good. But you know what he did? The good old Soul pretty much ignored all those other actors and still went for it anyway. Because it just showed that he still believed in the role. Oh, and another side note I must forgot to mention as well. The guy who at least, was inside the Darth Vader suit of the original Star Wars, David Harper, in fact, even trained with Christopher Reeve for quite a while to even beef him up. Do you
Mm-hmm.
wondering why he was so buff in the film? Well, now you know why.
Side note: the actor who played Darth Vader in the suit was named David Prowse. But
Oh, sorry, not David. Yeah, sorry, my bad. David Prowse, not David Harper. Sorry, never mind. Don't get confused with that, people. My bad.
that's okay. That's okay. Anyway, hey,
But yeah,
it's
you
not.
know what I mean. So the guy who was in the Darth Vader suit, David Prowse.
Mm-hmm. Moving on, and, I feel like it's. And I feel like at least the first half of the movie basically just shows us Superman's origin story, and, and how Krypton blew up, how the Kents found him, how he was raised, and eventually how his father died.
Yeah. Oh, and another quick thing that I should probably mention, of course, about good old Christopher Reeve's performance in this is that he really does play Superman, of course, in the way we would all like to see him, play it, of course. He plays it seriously, he makes it funny, and of course, not that this is a bad thing, obviously, but, as at least as Clark Kent, nutty and at the same time full of heart. He really is just a great Superman and really does a great convincing job of someone who really does care um for humanity in general and for the ones who can't stand up for themselves. And so anyway, he does a great job of doing a really good convincing Superman. As I said before, to me, in my opinion, probably the greatest actor now of all time to ever play Superman. I'm not even kidding.
Mm-hmm. And now with the main actors out of the way, let's talk about the supporting cast. Starting with Superman's love interest of the film, Lois Lane, played in this and the sequels by Margot Kidder. Uh, To me,
Yeah,
I always found Lois Lane to be a little bit snarky, like when it was unnecessary. But I never had any disrespect for her. I always found her to be a particularly good love interest for Superman.
yeah, kind of the same here for me too. I wouldn't say she was one of the few characters that even like at least side characters, in comic books in general that I've always loved per se, but she definitely wasn't the worst either. But one of the few things that, and I will admit, even many of other comic book fans have complained about this kind of about Lois Lane though throughout the years, is that she's kind of this, stereotypical damsel in distress, but still she did do things that was still pretty good, even to like her character traits in general, like in the film, of course, without explaining detail to detail, but yeah, she's definitely not afraid against criminals in general, and she's anyway quite a bit of a fighter, smart, and still yeah, she'll do anything to uncover a story pretty much, and that's what's so great about her.
Mm-hmm.
And still, Margaret Kidder, I would dare say, yeah, she does a great job of Lois Lane. Still, she probably does a pretty dang good, solid interpretation of Superman's love interest. Yeah, in general,
Mm-hmm.
that's really all I have to say about it.
Right. It's to be fair, it's even after watching the movie, I pretty much forgot about most of the cast members except for a few. So I'm just gonna skip ahead to the villain of this movie, Lex Luthor, played remarkably by Gene Hackman. Now, Lex Luthor basically considers himself the greatest criminal mind of our time, and I will admit, throughout most of the movie, I did consider him to be an interesting threat. But eventually, after knowing what his plans were, not to go into any spoiler territory, it kind of cheapened into super villainy in the movie.
Hmm. I guess that's understandable. Speaking of, yeah, Gene Hackman does a great job as old Lex Luthor, and probably is in fact one of my favorite actors to ever portray the iconic villain. And yes, of course, Luthor, as you all know now, is probably of course, considered to be one of the most iconic and remarkable, I would just say, supervillains in comic book history in general. And Gene Hackman really been doing job loves to mess with Superman, and that's to me what Lex is all about. And Gene Hackman really does at times even look like he's enjoying being the character.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, what do you have to say about him, Silver?
I will admit, it, it Hackman is by far one of my two favorite Lex Luthor actors. The other one being Clancy Brown from Superman the Animated Series, and it's hard. Uh, uh, but honestly, I just say that Hackman's my favorite live action Lex Luthor, while Clancy Brown's my favorite animated Lex Luthor. That's just how I put it,
Yeah, I
mate.
think that yeah, I've heard of it, at least heard the voice of the animated series version of Lex Luthor, and it's kind of the same for me too. He's probably my second favorite too. I think he does another really great job, of course, as his version of Lex Luthor, and does as well another great convincing job of bringing the classic villain to life in general. No
Mm-hmm.
offense though, out of all the probably the actors to ever play Lex Luthor, and don't get me wrong though, this actor in general is he's a great remarkable talent in the movie industry in general. But I have to say though, Jesse Eisenberg though as Lex Luthor, oh god, not a great idea.
Trust me, we'll get to that at another time. But yeah, comparing Hackman to other actors who have played Luthor, like Kevin Spacey, Jesse Eisenberg, or even John Cryer from the Supergirl TV show, you can start to see that not a lot of people who played Lex Luthor as good as him. And the only exception, I think, to me, is Michael Rosenbaum from Smallville.
Yeah. Um, I've never seen that version. Now, forgive me yet of Lex Luthor before, but yeah, still, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I guess for my side of things, now in fact, I only have now at least three interesting facts that I want to share about the film. First is actually originally back, I believe, yeah, this was still at a time when the film, of course, just came to an end. Filming in general being and even being released, but back when the Oscars were about to happen, of course, back at that time, Richard Donner was really pissed at the time that the production designer of the film, I forgot his name, but yeah, and also the cinematographer who helped make the movie, he was really mad that they weren't nominated for an Oscar because he really felt like they should have been. And you know what? After looking back, I can't say I blame him. I really definitely think they should have.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, what the hell's wrong with them?
If I'm right, only the screenplay, the music composer, and the and so on and so forth were nominated for an Oscar on that film. But yeah, in my opinion, the two other most important people who helped bring the film to life and make it look so real and so anyway magical, but at the same time grand and big. Of course, the production designer and cinematographer, as well with the great shots and and the magical and slash great and grand looking shots. That's so not fair. That's
Yeah,
really sad. And in fact, what makes that even a bit more sad? I believe even at least the cinematographer shortly passed away even at that time.
oof, ouch.
I know, right? Damn.
Yeah, but seriously though, if I go who won the Oscar for Best Picture in 1978, and I find out it's Jaws 2, let's just say I'm gonna be a little bit mad over that.
Yep. But as I said before, I can't say I blame Donna for that.
Mm, I guess.
The second fact I have is now actually the good news is now it's a bit of a funny one. Originally, Hackman did actually not want to play the role of Luthor. And I'll tell you why, because he did not want to shave his mustache or his hair to play the role. But then here's the funny thing though. Donna even convinced him to still possibly be in the film by shaving his mustache and his hair. But here's the funny thing. In real life, because this was at a time before they even met face to face, but um, Donna didn't actually have a mustache. Instead, he had a fake one that he kind of sticked onto his face, and then a few moments later, once they left, or once Hackman arrived on the set or whatever, he peeled it right off.
Okay, that's funny.
Oh, and hold on a minute, I'll be right back. Oh yeah, that's right. I almost forgot that. Also, originally during the making of this film, the producers, in fact, even tried to make Superman 1 and 2 back to back. And as far as I'm concerned, for everything, even in general, I have to say and talk about this film, that's pretty much it for me now. The last few things I want to say, though, this film, to me, in my opinion, did a great job, of course, of telling a great and fun and at the same time colorful and unique magical story about true science fiction and fantasy and superhero, comic book stuff in general. The production design is amazing. The cinematography is amazing. The music, almost forgot, but man, the music is so iconic. I can never get it out of my head. Every time I even just hear the first note of that theme, I know what it's from.
Yeah, I mean, in
And
honestly,
so pretty much everything about it, I would dare say, is nothing wrong with it. I wouldn't even change a thing about it. I think it's so well done. Not the great. I wouldn't say though one of the greatest films of all time, but still really good film. Thought it was amazing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, one last thing I want to mention, and in the opening of the film, there are, and you see three villains on Krypton being put on trial. Oh, Non, General Zod, and Ursa. Remember them? I want you, when you go into watching Superman 2, I want you to put, and before you go watching Superman 2, I want you to put those three villains and so what happened to them, and just put them in the back of your head. I won't say why, just keep that thought in mind. And now you were saying?
Yep, on that, pretty much all those things you said about the story in general of Superman the movie. One of the great films, probably from Richard Donner ever, and yeah, of course, one of his greatest films of all time, alongside his 1976 horror classic film, The Omen. Superman the movie, really well done. I think
Hmm.
I think um, Donna and Christopher Reeve really did a great job of bringing a classic comic book superhero tale to life.
I agree.
And that's all for me.
I will admit, and I don't have any hate towards this movie. It's pretty much it's one of the perfect superhero movies, right alongside Tim Burton's Batman and the 2017 Wonder Woman film. I mean, um, I honestly give this movie a 10 out of 10.
My rating for this film, you know what? I would give it at least, a 10 out of 10 as well, actually.
A perfect score for a perfect movie. Well, next time on Superman, we'll continue in the adventures of the Christopher Reeve anthology with a look at the sequel that's even more wild, Superman 2. Until then, I've been the Screen Slasher, and he was the Cinemastein. And remember, if you believe a man can fly, he will. See you soon, my friends.